Ready, set, Welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast, where we discuss Dynasty strategy, rankings, and all things NFL. So get ready to geek out on fantasy football with your host, Rich Dotson.
Welcome back into the Dynasty Nerds Podcast. Yes, it's Garrett again. You already knew. If you listened to last week or the week before, Rich told you he's not going to be here today. But we have somebody back that we've been missing during that stretch. Welcome back, Matt O'Hara. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good, man. How are you? Thanks for welcoming me back with open arms. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Down for a couple of weeks, but I'm back.
We missed you, man. We missed you.
Well, I miss being here, man. I miss talking football, so I'm glad to be back.
Good. All right. Well, let's get right into it. But before we do, let's talk about Prize Picks. That's right. Prize Picks. Promo code NERDS. You will receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. You're saying, well, what do I do there? Well, you get to go there and you look at player props. They'll give you lines of, can this player get over this amount of yardage or will he get under this amount of yardage? And you know what? This week, specifically for Thanksgiving, they are giving you a layup, a freebie. Justin Jefferson over under half a yard.
Oh, he only has to get 1 yard. That's
1
it.
yard. Now, he could pull a Rondale Moore and, catch a pass, lose 6 yards, and get injured and be out for the game.
Even a professional basketball player will occasionally miss a layup. It does happen. I mean,
it's possible.
It's possible.
But the odds are pretty darn good you're going to hit the over on the half yard for Justin Jefferson.
I would hope so, yeah.
Here's one that I found really difficult. You can tell me what side you lean on this. Right. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Lions, Thanksgiving Day game. Those two things go together.
Absolutely.
They're playing well, but they got to play Buffalo. 73.5 yards over under for Amon-Ra.
Ooh.
That was a tough one for me.
That's a tough one. I'm going to say they're going to have to throw the ball quite a bit. And Amon-Ra is the guy there that's going to be getting all those targets. I think I'm going to take the over on that one. I don't feel great about it because the defense can be pretty stout there, but I think I would take the over.
I think he'll get enough targets, and you're right. I think they'll be down in the game. I took the over. One of my favorite ones that I saw, and these ones are all for specifically Thanksgiving Day because it's more fun to talk about those games.
Of course.
Ramondre Stevenson over under 26.5 receiving yards. And you know what? He's had 50 or more receiving yards in 3 of his past 4 games. So I feel pretty solid about the over on 26.5. You agree?
I like that one, and I would take the over as well. I think, he has been kind of chewing up that pass catching role there in New England. So I think that's an over for me as well.
There you go. So see, you could just take those 3 right there that we talked about. The layup with the Amon-Ra and the Ramondre Stevenson. And those were just receiving yards ones. You can go into rushing yards. You can go to passing yards. You can even get outside of fantasy stuff if you want to. Normal fantasy stuff.
I know you can mix sports and stuff as well. So, it can be all over the place.
Absolutely. When the fun stops with the NFL, it does not stop on Prize Picks, all kinds of other sports. So go there, use promo code NERDS, and you will receive 100% instant deposit match up to $100. Okay, Matt, there was a lot of injuries this week.
Another week, another injury-filled show, right?
Yeah. Honestly, and there's a lot of these guys are pretty big names. We could spend most of the show talking about these players and their injuries. One of the biggest ones, partly because of how big he's been for fantasy football purposes lately, Justin Fields.
Ooh.
We have the shoulder now. It's not his throwing shoulder. It's his other shoulder. There have been a little bit of conflicting reports on, is it dislocated? Did it pop out of socket? Is that the same thing? Is it there's just been all of these. So I feel like the clarity on the injury isn't great, but I also feel like the timetable on the injury isn't great. There are some saying that he could return this week. There's some saying this could push him out for the season potentially.
Right. Yeah. And it's obviously Tuesday. They don't have to say anything. So I have a feeling this is going to be one of those later in the week things when we figure it out. But like you mentioned, he's been this wonderful surprise, especially the past few weeks. And then all of a sudden it's the shoulder injury. Luckily, it's the non-throwing shoulder, but it could still end his season. So that's the serious reality of the situation. I mean, it's unfortunate because I feel like, this is a guy that was finally, they had they were finally kind of taking the training wheels off a little bit.
Yeah.
And he was showing some things, so people who have them on their fantasy roster, it was finally starting to pay off. They were able to start him. And I mean,
Yeah.
it was, especially with all the rushing totals he's been getting, it's been really nice. And to have that kind of rug pulled out from underneath you kind of stinks, especially at this point in the year, because there's no way you can easily replace that kind of production. So Justin Fields going down right now. It's a bummer for him. I don't know that it's that, like it's not like you were relying on a lot of the fantasy options. Obviously, Cole Kmet's probably the big one right now that he was starting to emerge as well. And Trevor Siemian, I believe, is the backup there. Like, what kind of value is he going to hold with a backup quarterback there?
Yeah.
The offense as a whole, like, David Montgomery had a pretty nice schedule coming up here for the playoffs and the rest of the season. Our team's going to be able to stack the box and just kind of really shut him down now that he's the kind of the biggest option there on the offense. So there's a lot of kind of moving pieces with the Justin Fields news, and unfortunately we're kind of in a wait and see situation until the injury news comes out and we figure out, hey, is this a 2 to 3 week thing, or is this like a 4 to 5 week thing? So we'll see.
Yeah. Well, and it's kind of like your rebuilding dynasty teams. They're kind of in this rebuild mode where they're starting to do better than they expected. So in some ways, if you're the Bears and you're looking at it and you're saying, look, we have this guy that we think is our franchise quarterback. He's shown us enough in this 5-6 week period here to say, like, yes, he is a legitimate starting quarterback in the NFL. We don't have to worry about would we want to draft someone else or, whatever. We don't have to worry about any of that. We know he's going to be our guy. Is it more beneficial at this point to not risk anything terrible happening to him and just let him sit and take a couple L's in the process? Because right now they're kind of in this range of a top 5 pick. Not that they need the quarterback, but you could take some good offensive linemen, some good defensive pieces, or if you end up with a top 2 or 3 pick, you could be in line for one of those quarterbacks. You don't need it, so you trade out for this king's ransom. And that's something this team could use as picks. So I do wonder if they will be more cautious than we would see with maybe like a contending team or a team where they're not counting on this quarterback as much. Like, I think they're going to be pretty cautious with this. So interested to see how all of that plays out.
Yeah, totally, man. It stinks on one hand, but I do see your point on the other hand. Like, I mean, if I was on the team, I of course would not want to kind of, just kind of blow it for the rest of the year just for draft picks. You know what I mean? Especially since you had a good thing roll and you're in year one with a new system, a new coach. Like, do you want to set that kind of tone going forward? So
for sure.
I'm not really sure if that's the way they'll go or not. I guess only time will tell. Obviously, if you're a Chicago fan, this is a big time news for your franchise in general.
Yeah.
So, hopefully he gets a good prognosis and it's not one of these, season ending things. And we don't have to worry about it for more than a couple of weeks. Cause like we mentioned at the very beginning, it's his non-throwing shoulder. So as long as he's not taking big hits on it, it might be one of those things where they just wear the sling and kind of work through the pain, take a couple of pain injections and stuff like that and just kind of move on.
Well, the only difficult part about that on the not taking hits, one, his guy likes to run around a little bit.
You're right.
And two, there has not been a quarterback that has taken more sacks this year than Justin Fields. So very, very interesting game of chess that will happen here with whether or not Justin Fields ends up playing or not. Moving on to the next guy, a player that we had talked about a lot in the offseason, every podcast, whether it was Dynasty or not, had talked about in the offseason because people were ready to put this guy in the launching pad, us included.
Oh, yeah.
Kyle Pitts, one of the biggest fantasy disappointments this season, whether that's his fault or not, is up for debate. But it looks like he is headed to the IR with an MCL. I didn't hear if it was just a strain or tear. Did you hear?
I did not. I mean, a strain technically is a tear. So I think they that's kind of one of those wording things. And it depends on the grade of the strain is how bad the tear actually is. So Kyle Pitts, it sounds like, it's going to be surgery. It's going to be
right. So chances are he's done for the year, right?
I mean, it all depends on the surgery. It all depends on how bad it is when they get in there. So, I mean,
Why would you bring him back?
why would you bring him back? That's a great point. I mean, he was just kind of starting to take off a little bit and I think get more involved in the offense in the past 4 or 5 weeks. I mean, not to say that he's been the world changing tight end that we thought he'd be, or it wasn't even really a follow up to his rookie season that we were all expecting. But at least he was getting more involved. So, that offense as a whole, while he's gone, I think we'll see how, I guess, their record goes. If they're still in contention, they're going to bring him back. You know what I mean? That's an easy slam dunk. If they start falling off and they're really out of playoff contention, no need to rush him back. So I think that's kind of, that could be applied probably to him and Justin Fields as well.
Sure.
Not that they're in playoff contention, but who knows? But Kyle Pitts for sure. We'll see in the next few weeks how they fare without him or how extensive the knee injury is.
Yeah.
So
anything there? I mean, I don't think this greatly affects Mariota. I mean, anytime you lose a weapon of his caliber, it hurts, but he's not throwing the ball a ton anyway. So I don't think it overly affects him. And I know you're like, well, Marcus Mariota is a top 12 quarterback right now. You're counting on him in super flex leagues. So it is part of his equation, but I don't think it drastically affects him and whoever else they have on the roster behind him, which honestly, I don't know, but the answer is no. Like whoever it is, don't put him in your lineup. Like just avoid them at all costs.
Yeah, it's not worth it. It's, you hope that a guy like Drake London kind of as the year goes on will be able to absorb some of that. I think that's what it is. Because he's the only guy that's similar as far as size and that kind of and
the ability.
I wouldn't say athleticism, but ability maybe. So that's where I would expect some more targets to be funneled is kind of that way. So maybe we'll see a kind of resurgence because I feel like I haven't been paying close attention to him, but
he did get a touchdown this week.
Okay.
But it was still like under 30 yards or something like that. Like it wasn't.
And it's a very low volume passing game to, in total. So I think everyone's a little bit let down by Kyle Pitts, by everyone in that offense, except for Cordell Patterson, who kind of came back and just kind of stepped right back in.
Right.
So
we have two guys in concussion protocol. One was hurting your fantasy team, so you might not be that upset, but one was a big boost to your fantasy team for most of this season. Joe Mixon. It was tough to watch to begin with this week because I have Joe Mixon on, my home dynasty team, and I'm seeing Samaje Perine get in the end zone a ridiculous amount. And I'm what?
Was it 3 times?
3. Now, 2 of them, or the last one, Mixon was already gone by that point.
Yeah.
But those first 2, you're like, seriously? Come on, man. Sucks.
Yes.
But he's one where if you are a contending team, there's only a few running backs that get the amount of volume most weeks that Joe Mixon gets. So that's one that really hurts. But if you do have Samaje Perine, he's not Joe Mixon, but I think you can still get pretty good running back 2 numbers out of him because he's not being spelled in the passing game. He's still going to be out there for the most part. And yes, they'll work in some of their other backs, but it's going to be mostly his show. So would you feel comfortable starting him as your RB2 if Mixon is completely out?
I 100% would. I think those other guys haven't stepped up and proved themselves behind him, and Samaje has. So I think they know that what they have in him. He's a big guy. He's bigger than Joe Mixon. So, I mean, he's a tough, rugged guy. You don't have to worry about him coming out at any point in the game. And he catches passes, like you mentioned. So I think Perine is a nice RB2. It's obviously a step down from Joe Mixon. But, I mean, we just witnessed his upside in this past week, three touchdowns. It can be crazy like that. He can get that kind of production on the right kind of day. So, you expect running back 2 numbers, and whatever you get on top of that's kind of gravy as far as what you get from Samaje Perine.
The guy, the aforementioned player that is not really helping your team, Matthew Stafford. And this is a little bit different because Joe Mixon, this is his first concussion, at least in a significant amount of time. Matthew Stafford, just came back from concussion protocol.
Right.
So now he's back in concussion protocol. And that's when it gets kind of scary. When you have multiple concussions in a short time period, I saw some projecting that he might not even see the field for 2 or 3 weeks now. They might set him out a while. For fantasy purposes, though, he was not good. I mean, he has not been helping your team at all. In some ways, as long as you have other sort of starting-ish options, this is kind of a blessing in disguise, because you look at Stafford and you're like, oh man, I got to start Stafford. Now it might be better to start Jared Goff. It might be better to start, you know what I mean?
It makes your decisions easier. You don't feel obligated or tied to starting Matt Stafford, because he does have upside. You think, hey, maybe this is the upside start. He just hasn't been that guy this year. The Rams offense as a whole has been just a train wreck. It has been so odd to try to kind of figure out where this all came from. I know, that obviously Stafford's elbow was an issue in the offseason, and I think it was downplayed somewhat, but he has not looked the same this year, and the offense as a whole just hasn't been clicking. And I think, this is obviously just complete conjecture on my part, but I think it all links back to that elbow not being right, coming from all the way back from the offseason. So you tie that in with him now being concussed twice in 2 weeks. And, is this one of those things where Stafford's, they shelve him for the year, make sure his head gets right, make sure his elbow gets right. You just kind of ice him and you take your lumps. I mean, it sucks because they don't have any other picks. So, I mean, you're not like tanking for any good reason. You're not like getting better draft status out of any of this, but at least you're getting healthy and you're getting your guys. The trajectory of this team right now, they're not making the playoffs. They're not, competing.
Right.
As far as I can
they're already
tell.
missing Kupp on this offense. They just cut one of their core players today. We'll get to that in a second. Like it's a mess down there. So I'm with you. I wouldn't be shocked if they don't call it right now, but as we get to week 14, 15, 16, they just decide, you know what, let's just call it a year. And I'm with you. I would actually, if I can get him on the cheap, I might be willing to go out and get Stafford, because I think he's got a few more years in him still. I think Cooper Kupp's got a couple more years in him still. I think we could still see him be a productive fantasy asset if I can get him at, a second or 2 seconds or something like that. People just trying to cut ties.
For Stafford, right?
For Stafford, yes.
Yeah. I absolutely think that he's got some gas left in the tank. It's all going to come down to that elbow, though.
Right.
Like if that elbow injury, they're just been kind of putting bubble gum and Band-Aids on something that's really bad and needs like a serious, Tommy John type of surgery or something like that. Who knows? But Cooper Kupp is, he definitely has 2 or 3 good years left. Yeah. He was rolling until the injuries kind of crept up on him. So love to see those two back together. So hopefully the Stafford thing is something that kind of corrects itself here. The elbow's not too bad and the concussions get straightened out for next year, but I'm not expecting anything out of those guys going forward this year. So
absolutely,
it's the concussion stinks, but like you said, maybe it simplifies things for some people.
We saw Matthew Stafford have the same injury multiple weeks. Mike Williams, same injury multiple weeks. And that's just kind of been the story of the Chargers season so far this year. Is they're healthy? No, they're not. They're healthy? No, they're not. They're like,
I saw that. I was watching that game live. It was fantastic. That catch was great. And then he got up limping. I was like, come on, Mike. First catch was great. I mean, you toe tapped it. It was fantastic. Too bad he just screwed up his ankle toe tapping.
Yeah. And we saw Keenan Allen back in this game as well. It was good to see him back, and he ended up being the beneficiary of that to an extent. Got a lot of targets, did a lot with those targets. But as far as Mike Williams goes, it's kind of unclear how much time he's going to miss. They made it sound like it's not that bad, but clearly it was bad enough for him to come out of the game and miss it entirely. It wasn't just like they wrapped him up and sent him back out there at halftime or something like that. They just called it for the night. So it's kind of been this wait and see all season for a lot of these receivers and the Chargers. And it's kind of going to be the same thing where could he play this week? Sure. May not, maybe he won't play for 3 weeks. We really don't know. It's tough to say.
Yeah, it really is a bit of a bummer for a guy that I was excited to get back in some of my lineups. I've had other injuries and I saw that he was questionable, that he suited up, course, I fired him all lineups where I needed him, and two and a half points or whatever I got out of him was a bit of a letdown.
Yeah.
And bigger than that, I mean, it's the unknown of how long he's gonna, I guess. So yeah, Mike Williams, it's a bummer, obviously, for a player I hold near and dear to my heart. I hope he gets back soon.
I hear you. In that same game, Kadarius Toney, hamstring. This was supposed to be the Kadarius Toney breakout week.
Yeah, and here it is, the hamstring again. The old New York injury pops back up. I guess that thing wasn't fake. It wasn't all healed up.
That's the thing. I think most of us kind of thought that was just kind of a mirage, and apparently it was not. And I really thought, because I do the Fantasy Pros rankings every week, and it's not been my best year by any stretch of the imagination as far as that goes. But this was like, ooh, I can make up some ground here because it's going to be a big week where MVS is out, Juju Smith-Schuster's out. We've seen him designing plays for him specifically. He's going up and mossing people. Like, this is the week. I had him at like wide receiver like 14 or something ridiculous. I was so confident that he was going to have a good week.
You and a lot of other people. I mean, you weren't alone on that island. It was the Kadarius. The deck was all set up for him, and you know what? He busted. He hit on 9, came up with and acted up, and it is what it is, man. It sucks. Kadarius Toney. The little glimpses that we've seen of him when he's been healthy have been good, and that's what I saw on tape when he was coming out. That was why I liked him coming out. We just haven't seen enough as a pro. I think this is a good spot for him because Andy Reid's the type of coach, that's going to give second chances to guys and that have like character issues and stuff like that. So Kadarius Toney, I think, will be able to thrive there as long as his hamstring can kind of get straightened out. So we'll see, man.
Definitely frustrating, but yeah, you had both of those injuries in the same game. It was not a good one if you were counting on some players to perform.
Fun game though, still
a very fun game.
Yeah. That was a good flex by the NFL to the Sunday night game. Absolutely
good call on their part. Chase Edmonds. So Chase Edmonds, if you haven't been following closely, not a Miami Dolphin anymore. Nope. He is a Denver Bronco. Who, by the way, this team also cut a running back recently. We'll talk about that in a moment.
We'll get to that.
But at the same time that they're cutting another running back, Chase Edmonds went on IR. So he has a bad ankle injury. We're not going to be seeing him for a while. So if you're asking, well, okay, Melvin Gordon, well, that's the running back that we'll talk about in a second. He got cut. So it's Latavius Murray, I guess.
And
I don't is Mike like Mike Boone's
Marlon Mack out, I think right? is on. I think Marlon Mack is on that team
because Mike Boone's out. He's injured, correct?
Yeah, he's injured also. I think it's just Marlon Mack and Latavius. So yeah, it's gonna be a different looking backfield there. Can you figure out what's going on in Denver right now? Because I can't. Do they want to hold on to their jobs? Are they trying to get rid of the dead weight that isn't jumping on the bandwagon with the coaching, or what the heck is going on?
I would have been all about, Melvin Gordon getting cut had it been preseason, and that just meant more Javonte. I'd have been fine with that.
You know what? Maybe if Javonte was playing more from day one, maybe that ACL would have been fine, and whatever,
tuned up and ready to go. But that's unfortunate. Obviously. So yeah, there's really not a lot else to do. It's if you're in a redraft, Latavius Murray might be out there and available. You can check, but Dynasty, he's going to be on a roster everywhere. There's not going to be much. Maybe you can check and see if Marlon Mack's out there. But even, most deep Dynasty leagues are rostering a lot of these old running backs with a name. So
yeah, but Latavius Murray is a guy that can be had though. You know what I mean? He's old. And so if the price is right, it's all going to depend on the price.
What would you pay? What would you pay for him?
God, how old is he? Is he 32?
Something like that. He's like as old as me.
Yeah. So 32.
We're basically in the same shape wise, but
yeah, I mean, clearly standing next to each other, I would say these two gentlemen are both the same age.
Yeah.
Look, you're making my face redder. Stop it.
How bad?
God, man, you couldn't give a second. I would feel horrible giving a second. So it's like you're talking about a third round draft pick for a guy, and for a playoff run, would that get it done? It might take
2/3.
I was gonna say it might take a second, third, and I'm okay paying that, because a couple of thirds, those are dart throws. Those are you're spending them on a tight end who got drafted in the 4th or 5th round. Like, who knows if those guys ever pan out or not? And if you're in need,
would you give a late second if you got Murray and a third back? No.
I would feel great if I was the person who had Murray on their team, and I got that deal. I would feel great about that. So, but I wouldn't feel good doing that.
I probably wouldn't either.
Unless I knew I was getting like an early third back and it was like 4 or 5 spot different. You know what I mean? Like one of those type of deals. I would be okay with that.
Yeah. Otherwise, I think I'm with you. With you.
Yep. So right around there is the value on the guy, and those are easy moves to pull off at this point of the year. And if you're making a title run, I feel like that's really not that bad. That's not that bad of a price if you're in real contention.
Yeah. Moving on to the New York Football Giants, Wan'Dale Robinson, ACL done for the season. It's a bummer because he was, starting to come on, starting to see more production. Really all this does for me for this season is make me want Darius Slayton even more. That's really, he's been quietly just producing, not ridiculous numbers, but pretty consistent, like, 10 points here, 11 points, like very solid wide receiver 3 numbers. A guy that I definitely want on my team as an insurance piece in case one of my guys goes down and I need somebody to just tread water for me. I definitely want Slayton in that sense. But as far as Wan'Dale Robinson goes, I hate seeing ACLs at this point in the year, because when it happens week 1, week 2, that they're probably going to be able to recover in time. Once you start getting into the double-digit weeks, you really start to wonder, will they be able to go at the start of next year?
Right.
Some guys are freaks and they can come back in 9 months and it's no big deal for them. Other guys, it takes a good year and a half and they're still not fully healthy. So one to monitor there, but there were some good signs. But I still expect them to probably be drafting or signing a receiver in free agency, because clearly this wide receiver core is not, it's one of the worst in football.
Yeah, so it's bad. They're using smoke and mirrors, I feel like, to get the ball down the field. Slayton, like you had mentioned, once he got out of the doghouse, he's been a fairly consistent player. And then, obviously Wan'Dale was just coming out, kind of breaking out, had his first 100-yard game in this game when he tore his ACL. So they have I think a couple of pieces as long as they can keep Slayton around. I believe he's got to be coming pretty close to the end of his rookie deal, right?
Slayton, this is his last year.
So if they end up re-signing him, that's a nice little spot to kind of build upon Slayton and Wan'Dale if he can come back at some point next year. But I agree, they're going to have to definitely do something at the wide receiver position. And it might be early. Who knows? It might be a first round type of guy, because they don't have anyone who's bigger, prototypical 6'2", 6'3" type of guy.
Yeah. And if you added a Jackson Smith and Jigba, let's say, a guy that you think could be a true wide receiver 1, all of a sudden, Darius Slayton on the one side is a deep threat, and Wan'Dale Robinson in the slot. That's not an elite wide receiver core, but it's now a solid wide receiver core, especially if Daniel Bellinger ends up being the tight end that we think he could be. Barkley in the backfield, and all of a sudden, one big, solid, good receiver could really change the outlook of this whole team.
Yep, bumps everyone kind of back to their natural places, I think, among the wide receiver core anyway.
Absolutely. Real quick, CH, high ankle sprain, not a lot to do there, but right now we see a lot of teams just flying through running backs, lots of injuries. Isaiah Pacheco has really kind of taken over this job, but it's at least something to monitor.
Yeah, and a week after getting completely mothballed, he was actually starting to get some carries, and then he sprained his ankle. So was he in the doghouse on a short-term basis? Who the heck knows? But I agree. Pacheco has taken that kind of bull by the horns for that starting running back position. I don't think CH is getting it back anytime soon. We just haven't seen anything out of the guy to prove that he deserves it. So it's unfortunate. I've always had high hopes for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. It doesn't seem to be working out here.
No.
Pacheco, late round guy, just has more pop. He plays with the, I guess, urgency that you need to out of the running back position, and he's got that like violent type of running style. So it's something that the coaches are probably into, that they like, that they're getting big chunk plays out of him, and he's running angry. So it's I think something that kind of team needed in this new iteration of the Chiefs. So yeah, I think that's it. I think he's a better fit right now for the Chiefs.
Jaylen Warren, hamstring injury. We had seen him start to kind of take some big chunks into Najee Harris's workload. Conversely, Harris has actually looked a little bit better the past few weeks. It looks like his foot maybe is feeling a little bit better. He's got a little bit more juice, a little more pop than he had before. But Jaylen Warren had done a lot of nice things. So hoping this injury doesn't take him out too long, because I do think that they're a nice little 1-2 punch there in Pittsburgh.
Yep. I was going to literally say almost word for word exactly what you just said, so no need to beat that dead horse. Najee has been starting to come on and look good. So Jaylen Warren was likely going to have his stuff kind of start to scale back anyway, and now the hamstring injury. So it's going to be the Najee show. If you had Najee or if you traded for him while he was kind of down, good for you. I think you're going to have a nice little stretch run here, especially with the hamstring. They're not going to rush Warren back, I don't think, at this point, especially for a Steelers team that isn't going anywhere. So Jaylen Warren likely going to be out for the foreseeable, next 2 or 3 weeks. And by then Najee will have done his thing and kind of either gotten you over the hump and into the playoffs, or kind of through a round of the playoffs, maybe by the time Warren gets back. So yeah, it's going to be a significant time fantasy wise that Warren's going to be out.
I don't know if you saw the tweet, but there was a poll that had gone out, not this week, but last week, about who would you rather have in Dynasty? Would you rather have Rachaad White or Najee Harris? And as a guy that did not like Najee Harris a ton coming out, and, my not dislike for him as a person, but just questioning his true value has been well documented on the show. And I looked at that and I said, "Oh, Najee Harris easily." Like I don't understand that. He was losing in the poll, Matt. He was losing in the poll. More people would have rather had. Now, I wonder if these past 2 weeks people tend to be a little reactionary.
Absolutely.
So I'm sure that would look a little bit different today, especially with the Bucs just being on their bye week and whatnot. But very interesting how much people had gone from absolutely loving and worshiping Najee Harris to just wanting nothing to do with him.
We are living in a world of extremes, Garrett. And every single day it seems to just kind of reinforce that in my brain. So I like to try to stay somewhere more in the middle on a lot of these things. Najee is a good player. He's going to get tons of volume. He was injured to start the year, and that's kind of where that came. The ease of his, or not ease, but his production kind of being a little bit depressed. So I think they're going to get back to that. I think they like Jaylen Warren, and I think he was a nice waiver wire type of guy to get you some points and stuff like that. But Najee Harris is still the man there and is going to get most of the volume, just not 99% of it or something, whatever he was getting his rookie season. It'll probably be closer to 80. It's still plenty to qualify as a low end RB1 or high end RB2. So lots of value there.
Last one here. And we also have 2 players that are fantasy relevant that have been designated for a return. So this kind of goes together a little bit. Rondale Moore, who had been seeing a lot of targets, good production in the absence of Hollywood Brown, it looks like they might be switching here pretty soon. So Rondale Moore, groin injury, week to week for right now. We'll see how that plays out. But Hollywood Brown hasn't been activated yet, but his window opened up November 16th. There were thoughts that he might play this week. There were some video clips of him in practice looking good, different things like that. They decided not to activate him for the Mexico game this week, but there's a strong feeling that he could be activated this coming week. What are your expectations for Hollywood Brown? Because DeAndre Hopkins wasn't there early in the season. Him and Hollywood Brown did a switch at that point.
Right.
And Nuke has been playing out of his mind since coming back. What happens to this Hollywood Brown role? Is he still a pseudo wide receiver one? Does he take a back seat a little bit to DeAndre Hopkins? What's your feelings on that?
I mean, I think Hollywood Brown is an upgrade over Rondell Moore. So I think he's going to garner more of the attention and kind of targets than Rondell Moore did, and kind of pull some of that away from Nuke. But like you mentioned, Nuke is on fire. The guy is he's just going nuclear. It's insane. So he looks like he's back to his old self, and like he's the best wide receiver in the NFL right now. So I would expect him to still kind of be the number one guy, but they're still going to take chunk plays, and they're still going to take plays down the field that go to Hollywood and are designed for Hollywood. So I don't think Hollywood Brown is going to be the guy that he was before when it was just kind of his show. But I think he's going to get more than what Rondell was, and Rondell was doing well, and you know, they were drawing stuff up for him, and he was getting his little bits here and there too. So I think there's room for both of those guys to succeed, and especially in that offense that loves to throw the ball a ton. So I think good things are going to happen. I think Nuke is going to be the one that's kind of most weeks is going to outperform Hollywood, but there could be a day or two when Hollywood breaks off a couple of big plays and scores some touchdowns that he comes out on top. So I think there's room for both those guys. Another kind of unrelated thing, Cliff Kingsbury just fired his offensive line running game coordinator.
Interesting.
Today, after a quote unquote incident, is what I read. So I don't know what happened there. I don't know if Cliff said, no, we're not running the ball. We don't even need you. Get out of here. I don't know. That's just kind of how I pictured it going down.
Interesting. Yeah.
Going to throw the ball even more.
Might as well. Why not?
Yeah.
What the heck?
Yeah.
Another guy being designated for return, Jameson Williams. They just opened his window on the 21st. This is a rookie we haven't seen at all yet. Right. He tore his ACL in the national championship game last year for Alabama. Player, though, that universally on the Nerds podcast, especially including Jared Wackerly, who probably liked him as much, if not more than anyone else on the podcast. But guy we liked, great speed, was taken highly in the draft by these Lions. Any expectations this year for him, or is it just like happy to see him on the field? Really don't care about his production, but I just want to see him look like he has the speed that he had before, and then we'll chalk that up and start fresh next year. Like where are you at with Jameson Williams?
Well, I mean, he was my number 2 wide receiver in this class, so I have high expectations for him. If he's activated and he's playing, I would hope to see flashes at the very least of a guy that can be a game changer. And that's my expectation for a guy like Jameson Williams. He was that guy at Alabama. He showed enough there for me to kind of bump him way up the list. He was a very unique player in the speed and the extra gear that he has to be able to run away from people. So it'll be interesting to see. I hope they don't rush him. Like I don't think they've rushed him back. It's December. It's going to be darn near by the time he gets back. So I think they play it right, and hopefully this is his moment to kind of get his feet wet in the NFL and kind of show us, hey, look, I was a first-round draft pick for a reason. They took me high for a reason. I can take the lid off defenses. I can get around the edge and get to the outside and just go. I can run all the routes I was able to do there in college football. So hopefully he's just free and clear of the injury, and we get to see exactly what Jameson Williams is down the stretch run here. And if that's the case, I would expect some pretty good things to kind of happen here down the stretch of the season.
Yeah, I'm with you. I definitely think we're going to see flashes. I don't expect the chemistry with him and Goff to be there just yet. So if we see those big plays, I'm gonna be thrilled. I'm gonna be super excited. I'm gonna have him on several dynasty teams, so I'm gonna be pumped. But even if he starts slow and we only see 1 or 2 games where he even gets over 50 yards, that's not gonna really change my evaluation of him much, because it's such a small sample size. I just want to see him healthy and looking like a similar player to what we saw at Alabama. As long as I see that, I'll feel good going into next year. So that's my expectations are low. I'm hoping for more. My expectations are pretty tempered though, at this point in the year.
Understandable, but you know me, I'm an optimist.
There you go.
I'm shooting for
Mike
the
Williams.
moon. Absolutely.
His last name is Williams, so just saying.
I've got a thing for those guys.
He's not the favorite Williams though. Favorite Williams is Javonte. As we established. Remember the sweater?
Yeah, the sweater, the sweatshirt that looked like it said favorite Williams.
Yeah, favorite Williams.
That's my favorite Williams.
Yeah, there you go.
That's yours. So, yeah, that's yours, and maybe mine.
Yeah, I mean he's up there for you. I can't imagine anybody ever going above Mike though.
He's got a pedestal on top of every other Williams.
Yeah,
they got no shot at it.
Yeah, we might have to have a favorite Williams debate someday on the show. All right, real quick.
We'll have to get Rich one, so it could be a 3-way debate.
A 3-way debate on him. Yeah. Maybe Jameson can be his Williams.
Maybe, I don't know.
There we go. All right, before we get into all the other goodies that we have for the show today, want to remind you guys of our friends at Prediction Strike. Yes, Prediction Strike. Now might be the time to get those stocks of Jameson Williams before he gets out there, gets going. If you believe in him, you're like Matt, you think that he could right away show a little bit of something. Maybe not wide receiver 1 right away, but a little something. Get in now while the price is cheap. Because if he ends up flying up boards and ended up becoming a wide receiver 1 for fantasy football purposes, it's going to be a pretty good investment. That's what you get to do. You get to invest in these wide receivers, these running backs, these quarterbacks, these players. It doesn't even have to be NFL. It should be, but it doesn't have to be NFL. You get to go over there, get a share of a player. You can buy the players, share or sell the shares of the players, all those things. And best of all, you can get a free share if you use the promo code Dynasty. That's right. If you want to take the stock market approach to fantasy football, go to Prediction Strike, use promo code Dynasty. We'll get you a free share of a player just for signing up. And Matt, you want to tell us about the Sleeper buy sell of the week? Sleeper, the incredible platform where I play most of my leagues. Love everything they're doing there. Who's the buy or sell of the week on Sleeper?
So my Sleeper buy or sell of the week is going to be a sell this week, and it's Jamal Williams.
Not the favorite Williams.
Not the favorite Williams. He's not even on my list because I've got DeAndre Swift in so many leagues. That Jamal Williams favorite Williams list. He's on the other Williams list. But he's a 27-year-old running back. He's currently running back 13 in PPR. His value is largely boosted by the fact that he's got 12 touchdowns on the year already. 12 already. It's ridiculous. And of course, he's also in the final year of his contract, which for me is a big one because in Detroit, he's getting fed all the goal line carries. He's getting a lot of the work. I don't know that he's going to be getting that kind of work on another team, at least not to the extent that he is here in Detroit. And DeAndre Swift, he's starting to actually get healthy. So who knows if this is going to maintain throughout the entire rest of the year. My guess is yes, because I need DeAndre Swift to do better. So, of course, it's going to keep on going, but you never know. So, Jamal Williams, my sell of the week. It could probably be again next week and the week after that, after he gets another 12 touchdowns in a game and totally screws me. So, buy or sell of the week. Brought to you by Sleeper, Jamal Williams.
There you go. Least favorite Williams. Okay. We did have another cut. We alluded to it, but we did not outright say it. Darrell Henderson. This one, the Melvin Gordon I could kind of see coming. Like, it was a surprise. but it wasn't that big of a surprise. He's had fumbling
He's had
issues.
fumbling issues. There's been a
Yeah.
lot of strife, it seems like, on the team with him kind of centered around that strife. So Melvin Gordon was a kind of surprise cut, but Darrell Henderson,
I did not see that coming at all.
Where did this come from? Like, did somebody emerge that I am unaware of there in the backfield?
I mean, sort of. So not to the extent you would think of like truly emerging, but Cam Akers now starting to get more involved, more of the work. And Kyron Williams came off the injury list. He's been getting some of that third down work. He's been getting the passing game work, getting more involved in. Now, neither one of these guys had done anything to like write home about or anything. They were like, I gotta start this player in fantasy. So it was surprising the extent of Henderson was still involved. He still looked solid. I mean, you could argue of all the backs, he still looked like the best back for at least this season. So
it's very odd.
I think it was another sign that, kind of we were talking about earlier with Matthew Stafford, that they might just decide to just call this a season, wash their hands of it, and just move on to 23, because this just doesn't look good.
And I saw some conjecture on Twitter, like, oh, did they cut Darrell Henderson to bring Melvin Gordon on, like pick him up on waivers? But then Gordon cleared waivers. So that's not it. So,
well, and did you see the tweet Darrell Henderson had?
No.
Yeah, he had the emoji with the sunglasses and then like the praise hands. So like he was like, good riddance, cool, good to be gone.
Yeah.
Like it was odd. So I wonder if there is maybe more issues in the locker room than we know about. I mean, we knew Cam Akers. We knew about the Cam Akers stuff.
Right.
We don't know exactly what it was, but we know there is stuff. Maybe there was more going on there than meets the eye. I have no idea, but that whole team to go from Super Bowl winner to look like a Browns team is very surprising to do that in one short turnaround.
This has to be one of the worst Super Bowl hangovers that I can recall. I mean, this is bad. This one's been almost epic because, like you mentioned, I mean, they have gone from Super Bowl contender. Do they have like 3 wins or something? Like
it's bad. It's 3, 4. It's not a lot.
Yeah. And regardless, it's horrible. Man, and it's not like you can point.
Yeah, 3 and 7.
Yeah, you can't point your finger at one thing and say, hey, this is going to turn it around. Or at least this is just a down year and they have a bunch of then they're going to have higher draft picks because they don't have their draft picks. They got rid of all those. So this is going to be an odd undoing. This could be the odd undoing of this kind of super team that they got going on, where they might have to like trade some of their superstars to get picks back. But do they even want picks back? I don't know. I can't make heads and tails of them. They had a good thing going. It seems to be kind of running through their hand like, sand or something like that. They just can't seem to grasp it and keep it in their hand. I don't know. It's very odd. So the Rams are a mess. The Darrell Henderson stuff, who knows where he lands, because I think he's the best one out of the bunch. I'd rather take a gamble on him right now out there in the trade community rather than the other 2 guys that are staying with the hot mess. Like maybe Henderson lands somewhere good,
somewhere nice.
And they're actually using him. Maybe he goes to Denver. I mean, who knows?
Sure. Or Kansas City.
Yeah.
Kansas City actually did put a claim in on Eno Benjamin.
Okay.
So I found that kind of interesting there. And we know Henderson's got the good speed. So I don't know. It could be interesting to see where he lands if he gets. I'm assuming he's going to be claimed, but you never know. They could let him go and get through waivers. But a guy that's still on, I believe this was the last year of his rookie deal. So I'm assuming somebody's going to want to pick that up because he was a 3rd-round running back. He's not getting paid that much.
Yeah, it's got to be a pretty cheap deal. And to have a guy just through the end of the season, bodies at this point at the running back position are what you're really looking for. And guys with experience and guys that you kind of know have a thing that they're good at. Like Henderson's got good top end speed. He's a very good straight line type of runner. He can hit a hole and kind of go and make a big play out of any play, So Henderson, I think, will kind of land on his feet somewhere good. So he's the guy that I would want out of the trio of backs that were on the Rams. So I don't know. Shaking my head. Like that's all I can do at this point on that move. I have no idea. Maybe it'll make sense in a few days, maybe something will come out or whatever. But right now, I'm kind of just baffled by that one.
No, it's an odd one for sure. So little bit of a humble brag. Actually, not so humble. It's just a straight up brag.
Just brag it, man. Let's
just
hear it.
bragging. I don't know if you recall my hot take. One of my hot takes this preseason was that Travis Kelce is the number one, not just tight end, but number one tight end and receiver overall. I don't know if you recall that or not.
I do recall that.
Okay.
I do.
Right now, he is second amongst all pass catchers, not running backs. So I guess pass catchers is incorrect, but between running backs and wide receivers, he is number two in points per game right now. Stephon Diggs has 22.7. Then Kelsey's next at 22.3. So only 0.4 points away from being the highest overall scorer amongst wide receivers and tight ends. So he's just having an unreal season.
He's the biggest difference maker on anyone's team right now.
Anyone's team.
Yeah, it's insane.
Absolutely. I believe it was Ryan McDowell that tweeted it out today. The difference between Travis Kelce at tight end 1 and Mark Andrews at tight end 2 is the same points per game difference of Mark Andrews at 2 and the tight end 33. That's the gap. Like, just absolutely absurd, the numbers he's putting up in a year where literally no other tight ends are giving you consistent production. I know that there's some young guys that we like that are looking good, Cole Kmet, Dulcich here and there. Like there's some optimism, but none of these guys have been doing it at any sort of a consistent level, like we've seen from Travis Kelce. So I ask you this question, Matt. On a contending team, if you have basically any tight end not named Mark Andrews or Travis Kelce, obviously you're not going to trade for him if you already own him, what would you be willing to give to get Travis Kelce on your team? We have to keep in mind he is 33 years old, but he somehow seems like he's taking the Tom Brady route, where it's just like age doesn't really matter.
It doesn't seem like he's slowed down at all. That's for sure. Man, he's obviously far surpassed the one, first round draft pick type of compensation. That's way out the window. So you're looking, I mean, to me, he's like 2+. That's what it feels like to me.
Yeah.
Because he's that much of a difference maker. If he's on my team, that's what I'm looking for. A couple of first round draft picks and maybe a tight end back. You know what I mean? Like that's what I'm looking for. You're getting the supreme difference maker. This is going to be your almost for sure ticket to punch your way into the championship and probably win it, because it's just that much of a difference. I mean, like you mentioned, even if the guy that you're playing has Mark Andrews, you got like an 8-point differential with Travis Kelce. It's like you're starting a second tight end. And to the statistics that you were saying, it's like having it would be like having Mark Andrews in your lineup and then throwing like the number 12 guy in. You know what I mean? Having both those guys.
Dulcich with him.
Yeah, exactly. Here's your handcuff. Get to start two guys. Except it's just one guy. It's Travis Kelce. So it's insane. It's the one of the biggest differentiators in fantasy football right now. So it's crazy.
So I'm assuming, with you saying that you would be willing to give multiple first, I'm assuming you're guessing that those are going to be later first because you're a contender.
Absolutely. Right? Yeah.
Okay. With that, are you also assuming like multiple years that you think you'll still be able to use him? Like, are we expecting him to play 2, 3, 4 more years?
Yeah, no, that's my assumption is based off of that. But it's also it's based on if you're pushing your chips to the center of the table, this is the kind of move you make. You know what I mean? He's the biggest differentiator. He's the biggest difference maker that's going to get you over the top right now, because, all these running backs, you're streaming all these running backs. You're going to have some pretty good wide receivers already if you truly are contending. And if you can get this guy in your lineup, it's like you're starting an extra player every single week. It's crazy the advantage that you're going to get from a guy like Travis Kelce. So yeah, I mean, I'm basing this assumption off the fact you're going to get him this year for sure. You're making a serious run at that championship, but also you're going to have him for a year or two after that. So it's um I haven't seen any reason to think that he's slowed down or that he's going to be done after this year. I mean, who knows if, Kansas City Chiefs win a championship or something like that. We've seen crazier things happen, but he doesn't seem like the guy that would just hang it up personally. But
no, I mean,
knows?
His older brother's still playing too.
Right.
I mean, Jason Kelsey, I think he's 2 or 3 years older than Travis is. So, and he's still playing.
Yep. At a high level as well.
At a high level. So
just freak genetics. You know what I mean?
Hey, they're from Cleveland. So
hey,
just saying.
Something in the air over here.
Something in the air. All right, let's get to one more thing before we wrap up the show, and then we will head to the Nerd Herd episode where we're playing some games. And Matt, the likely-o-meter is back.
My favorite, the likely-o-meter.
I did it just for you. The Isaiah likely-o-meter. All right. Last question before we wrap up the show, though. Deshaun Watson. This will be, I believe, his last game out before he gets to come back.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any Cleveland Browns players that you are looking to acquire before the return of Deshaun Watson? Because we know that once he's back, those price tags will go up. So are there any players that you're looking to acquire there before he does? If so, who are you looking to get and for how much?
I mean, I think the obvious guys you're not going to be able to get at this point, right? I mean,
Cooper's probably the most obvious one. You're probably not getting him.
Right. I think you're probably not getting him, especially at any kind of discount. Like whoever has him knows, hey, Deshaun Watson's coming back next week. At this point, I think you could have done that maybe 5 or 6 weeks ago and gotten some sort of discount. But I think now is kind of not the time for that. Donovan Peoples-Jones might be a nice fit as a player that's been making some nice downfield catches and stuff like that. I do think Deshaun Watson, at least he used to show the element of being able to toss up some balls and get it downfield and kind of let his wide receivers make some plays. So I think Peoples-Jones might be a sneaky one. He would be the one that I think might still be able to have some sort of discount applied to him.
What about Njoku? Because obviously he's the top tight end, but he's been out for a few weeks with an injury. His first game back was nothing exciting. You think you can still get a discount on him, or is it a little late?
I think he might be another guy that's a little late on. I know, he's in the conversation as a tight end 1 still. I think he's tight end 18 or tight end 8, on a points per game basis. So it's not like you're going to get some huge discount, I don't think, at this point. If he had fallen flat all year or something like that, but he's popped a little bit here and there. And I would expect, as somebody who has followed the Browns in the past, that he's going to have a probably solid end of the season once Deshaun Watson comes in.
Speaking of falling flat in your face, the one player that kind of came to mind when I was writing this question down, and you're right, Donovan Peoples-Jones was kind of the most obvious one, just because he's not as big of a name, and Njoku and Cooper were kind of the more obvious ones. But somebody that's had really a terrible season, but we know is a good player and maybe could be revitalized a little bit with Deshaun Watson, is Kareem Hunt. Is that somebody that you think we could see his involvement in the passing game take a step up again with a guy like Deshaun Watson? Or are you worried that, he's still a pretty young quarterback, not going to check it down as much, run a little bit more, that we're still just not going to see Kareem Hunt involved?
So this one's been a weird one for me all year. I'm not sure what the heck is going on with Hunt, to be honest, and why they haven't been involving him more. I don't know if it was the trade request or anything like that kind of put him in a doghouse that he could never get out of, or what, but he's definitely not. He hasn't been nearly as involved as he was in the past, and there's been no sort of injury to Chubb that kind of opened up a door for him to get more carries and more involved in the passing game. So this one's weird. I don't know that there's a Deshaun Watson factor that can get him more of that or not. I honestly don't, because I'm not sure the reasons why he's getting mothballed right now. So I can't point my finger at Deshaun Watson and say this guy's he's going to get him more stuff, because who the heck knows? I don't understand the reasoning.
So you
for
wouldn't
him.
target Hunt then in a trade necessarily.
I wouldn't I wouldn't because I wouldn't thinking or expecting to get more value out of him right now. I would target him knowing that he's going to be a free agent at the end of the year. In one of those kind of moves,
Yeah.
I feel okay about, because I don't think he's going to stick around in Cleveland. I think he's going to get an opportunity next year. So from that aspect, as long as you don't need him for this year, I would be going after Hunt.
Okay, perfect. Well, I think that's it for this show. We're going to move the rest of the stuff, including a rebuild pick'em, a likely-o-meter, and maybe something to be grateful for in the Nerd Herd episode. Anything else you got, Matt?
No, man, that's it. I think we have a promo coming up, right? For Black Friday.
Oh, that's right. We do. Good call.
So I don't know what the code is on that. Do you, off the top of your head, know the code on that one?
I do not. Let's see. Let's check. This is perfect. Podcasting right now.
Yeah, where we're both checking our phone to see if we can find the podcast or the.
Yeah, I don't see a promo code. We will follow us at Dynasty Nerds Twitter.
That's perfect.
And we'll make sure we tweet
blast
that out.
We'll blast that out in the next couple of days. But it's going to be a Black Friday thing. It's probably going to be Black Friday if I had to guess what the promo code is going to be. But it's either 20 or 25% off. So we'll figure that out and get that tweeted out here in the next coming days. And so look for that.
Cool. All right. See you in the Nerd Herd episode.
Yeah. Gobble, gobble, gobble.